Hey guys, Spray here, and welcome to Not MLG Mondays, the show where you guys suggest an unconventional set of weapons and gadgets for me to use in Battlefield 4. To do so, all you have to do is copy the loadout in the description, paste it into your comment, and then edit it to whatever loadout you want to see. Today's loadout comes from Bomberhead909, and he suggested one called Handicapped Warfare. And we're going to be using the primary of the M16A4 because it's a burst weapon, with the only attachment being the heavy barrel. For secondary, we have a Rex pistol revolver thing. Anyways, for the first gadget we have a M26 Mass, which is basically the little shotgun, pocket shotgun that the assault kit gets. We have a medic bag for the third thing, or second gadget, and Flashbangs, which are so useful all the time, and I love it. And he also wanted us to use squad cover. Squad cover is not really a thing anymore, it's kind of a battlefield thing. It's actually in the defensive perks, so we're actually just using defensive perks instead. So to start out, this loadout is definitely handicapped by the fact that the M16A4 is a burst-only weapon. Burst-only weapons, and I think it's the only one in the game, besides of course the Lvlcap, which is a pistol, but you know, that doesn't even matter because the 93R is, yeah, it's burst, but it's a pistol, and it's actually very good. However, as primary weapon, the M16A4 is terrible because it's a burst-only weapon. Burst-only weapons suck in Battlefield 4, just for some reason. I don't know why. I mean, you'd think like a burst-only weapon, it's supposed to be very accurate, and you know, that's like supposed to be the benefit. There's supposed to be some sort of benefit to using the burst weapon because you're giving up the ability to be fully automatic. However, in Battlefield 4 there's no benefit really. You're just punishing yourself by going into burst only mode. It's kind of silly and it doesn't really make sense at all. They did try to change it up a little bit by having the first shot multiplier on the last bullet in the burst instead of being on the first one, but that really doesn't help at all, and I feel like they're still kind of like ridiculously stupid. In Battlefield 3 the burst weapons were actually really good. You could actually shoot the AN-94 faster in burst fire mode than you could when it was in automatic mode, which I thought was a really cool feature, and it added a little bit of a difference to the gameplay. However, you know, like I said, Battlefield 4, all the burst weapons suck, especially the M16A4, which used to be such a good gun. The M16 in Battlefield 3 was the best gun, obviously, because it had such a good reload time, it did everything average, and there was nothing where it did bad, and everybody used it. It was awesome, it was the best gun. So in Battlefield 4 they obviously removed it. I feel like the Ace-23 is kind of the new M16A3, but it's okay. The burst only variant of the gun is what we have in Battlefield 4 for the M16, and it's really lame and sucks because it's burst. And the terribleness of this burst fire gun is only compounded by the fact that the iron sights are horrible looking. I cannot understand. I don't know, maybe it's different in real life, but in the game, these iron sights are terrible. I don't know how the United States military uses these iron sights in real combat and stuff, because there's just so much clutter in the way that where there's other sights in this very game that are way less obtrusive and give you the same sort of, you know, accuracy. I feel like that the M16, the little carry handle and stuff is kind of unnecessary and just gets in the way. Especially from the gameplay perspective, these iron sights are really obtrusive and make no sense. So using those is actually very difficult, and I would suggest if you're trying to play with this loadout, definitely go for one of the lower zoom optics. And you know, usually I say stick with the 1x optics, and that's pretty much what everybody does. However, I did try it out a little bit with the M16A4, trying an ACOG on it, which actually worked out pretty well. I was actually surprised at how well it worked out, and I think it has to do with the burst. You know, it's kind of more like a sniper rifle almost, where you can't, because usually with the ACOG the reason why it sucks because the automatic fire just takes you off target in like 2 seconds anyways, so you might as well just have as a 1x. But for the M16A4 it actually worked out kind of nicely. So if you are using this loadout and you don't want to stick to it for the letter, I would say that using a ×4 optic or a ×1 optic would be the best choice, especially over the iron sights, because they really suck. Now, the heavy barrel actually makes things worse. You would think, okay, yeah, it's going to make it more accurate. Yeah, it does, but it makes the recoil a lot more sharp, and it sucks because that recoil just makes it almost unusable. So in this video I actually don't use it the whole time, and that's why, because you know, it takes like 80 kills or something to unlock, and I never really had a reason to use the M16A4 before, but I do start using it, and let me tell you, the M16A4 with only heavy barrel really is just the worst ever. I can't believe it was so hard to get these videos for you, this like footage in the background for you guys, because it was just so painful playing with it. Anyways, I mean, The lack of attachments on this gun just makes it really hard to use. The heavy barrel makes it harder. The fact that we can't use an underbarrel attachment like a grip or something makes it harder. A stubby grip would be very, very much appreciated, or even an angled foregrip would be appreciated because of how many times you're actually going to have to deal with the first shot recoil. So I think those two options, if you're trying to use this loadout, would be great. Angled foregrip or stubby grip. Even sometimes the ergonomic grip is actually pretty good, because as you'll see a few times in this video, I actually do hip fire down some people, because M16 has just a amazing, that's the only thing that's saving grace about it, and that's been carried over from Battlefield 3, is the amazing reload time. It reloads so fast that you don't even have to worry about ever, like I hardly ever had to use my sidearm. The only time I actually used the Rex is when I was actually sniping enemies or finishing them off, when, you know, because when it actually would make a difference between reloading and switching. So yeah, I actually try to do my best in this video to use all of the components of this loadout, like the mass and stuff, which is actually really, really good for close combat. So don't you know, sometimes people are like, oh yeah, the equipment sucks, and it's Handicapped Warfare is the title of this thing, so he's trying to like make things hard for me by giving me a Rex and a shotgun that kind of is a little bit bad, but they can actually be pretty useful. As you'll see here, you know, the Rex is really good at mopping up kills at a range that's not normal for pistols to be able to hit right, and the M26 Mass is just really good for close quarters. It's really nice. It's better honestly for finishing off people than, you know, going from 100% to 0 with other people, but you can do it. It's just very difficult, and you're gonna have to do 2 shots more than likely with going from 100%. But if you run out of ammo in the M16, which is likely because it has a pretty good fire rate for being a burst fire gun, it's nice to have something that can really shred people in close quarters. The med bag, of course, as I talked about in my last video with the AEK, is invaluable for firefights because you can just have that thing down healing you while you're taking damage, so it gives you that little extra edge. The flashbangs are like completely useless in this game. I've just sat there and thrown it on the ground right at my feet, flashed myself, and I could still see just fine. It's ridiculous. Like, the only reason why you would throw this around the corner at somebody is to be like, hey, I'm gonna come around the corner in a second. Why don't you pull your gun up and be ready for me? So they're completely useless. And I mean, I don't know why they're even in the game if they're so useless, and I don't understand why DICE would make them this way, because all the other grenades are so overpowered. They've been so overpowered. You can have like 3 and 2 of them, and it's ridiculous. However, they're like, oh, you know, the flashbangs, why don't we make them so they do nothing at all? They kind of, you know, they'll just annoy you at the most, and they won't stop you from being able to see or anything. And they're like, oh yeah, that's great. Yeah, yeah, okay. No, that was really stupid of DICE. If they're going to put flashbangs in the game, at least make them blind you from, like, blind you at all. They don't blind you for, like, more than a second at least. And especially if it's right next to your foot, you should be, like, blinded, and I should be able to come around the corner and just molest you or do whatever the hell I want to you for at least 2 or 3 seconds. Because flashbangs are, like, ridiculous in real life. You should be able to at least blind somebody with them for a reasonable amount of time. The defensive perks on this class are actually really nice. The 10% less chest damage is really overpowered, and honestly, I find myself staying with the defensive perks 9 times out of 10 just for that 10% less chest damage. But, you know, we do also get squad cover and all those other things like we wanted to get in this loadout. And that pretty much wraps up talking about each of the individual things. Overall, and final tips for this loadout, I would say you probably want to sneak around. That's like the one way that I could think of using this loadout and being really effective, is if you snuck around and got up behind people, because the one advantage of the burst fire is that it does cause you to have to control your shots. So, you know, you got to take it puts a forced delay in there on you, where you got to think, hey, you know what, I got to shoot him. And sometimes even I'm very, like, I fall victim to this all the time, where I come up behind a bunch of guys and I go crazy and I spray my whole gun at them and I kill like 1 or 2 of them, and when I could have killed at least all of them, or 4 of them, 5 of them, but, you know, I waste all the bullets because I go insane and I'm like so excited. But with the M16A3, since it's got the burst fire, it restricts you from just going crazy and spraying, so you can actually take the time to kill all of them and not waste your magazine and give them the chance to turn around on you. So it's actually kind of nice for that. So honestly, if you guys are going to try to use this loadout, I would recommend a silencer highly, because it could be actually really helpful for sneaking around and stuff. So after you're sneaking around, make sure you use your Rex and the Mass when it's needed. So of course the Rex when you're trying to finish people off, and the M26 Mass when you're in close quarters. And finally, the last tip that I can think of for this loadout trying to use it is never, just forget about using grenades all in general, because those flashbangs don't do anything, and you're never going to actually have a chance where they're going to actually help you. They're only going to hurt you by alerting the people that you're going to come up around and get them. So that's it for today, guys. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Not MLG Mondays, and I can't wait to see you guys next time. Spray and pray out.